After ranking the episodes of the excellent third season of BoJack Horseman, it's time to do the same for the fourth season. So let's start with number 12. In Commence Fracking, BoJack and Hollyhock visit all of the women BoJack hooked up with back in the 90s in order to find Hollyhock's mother. Meanwhile, Diane and Mr. Peanutbutter get into heated arguments as Diane is displeased with Mr. Peanutbutter running a pro-fracking campaign. And Ralph and Princess Carolyn get an ovulation watch to help Princess Carolyn get pregnant. There's nothing wrong with this episode, but since this season is so good, it ends up at the bottom of my list as the other episodes are just better and more engaging. In the season final, BoJack realizes he is not Hollyhock's father, but that Butterscotch is her father, which means that BoJack is her brother. It was great to see that BoJack took the time to investigate this as well as tell Hollyhock's fathers, showing he is still capable of selfless acts. The rest of the episode is just there to wrap things up and set things up for the next season, though it lacks rewatchability and is not filled with that many funny moments, which is why it ends up at the 11th spot. Another average episode is episode 10, that is until the disturbing ending, which still gives me chills to this day, when BoJack discovers that Beatrice was secretly putting weight loss pills in Hollyhock's coffee, which ultimately caused her to overdose, making for one of the most memorable moments of the season. In The Judge, BoJack gets jealous when Hollyhock starts to date an intern on BoJack's new show. The show itself is so ridiculous that it creates so many hilarious moments, making it extremely rewatchable. Aside from that, Princess Carolyn gets to meet Ralph's family and Mr. Peanutbutter declares his full-on support for Woodchuck. These plot points are also interesting to follow, though I find the main plot to be the highlight of the episode. In Thoughts and Prayers, we get to see how mass shootings can affect and be used to promote an upcoming movie, and while she isn't a big fan of guns, Diane ends up owning one herself, which encourages all women to carry guns around as they want to feel as safe as men. This is filled with hilarious moments despite the serious issue. Unfortunately, the B-plot with BoJack and Hollyhock visiting Beatrice is less engaging, which is why this episode ends up at the number 8 spot. If you want to know what goes through BoJack's mind, you need to watch episode 6, and this is what makes this episode, as it is very interesting to hear how suspicious and self-hating he can be. Though, just like Thoughts and Prayers, the B-plot of this episode is forgettable, as Princess Carolyn and Rutabaga try to plan a wedding for Todd and Courtney, which is not that interesting to follow. The fracking under Mr. Peanutbutter's house takes its toll, and when his house is filled with guests for his posh campaign fundraiser, the house collapses due to an earthquake. This forces Mr. Peanutbutter to show he can lead others as the future governor, while his rival Woodchuck appears to save the day, which causes some friction as he is obviously the better leader, though everyone is easily persuaded as they are losing their mind and running out of food and water. Meanwhile, BoJack and Diane finally sit down to talk after getting drunk for days on end, and Princess Carolyn and Todd work out a deal for the workers of an ant colony. In this episode, all the main characters get to shine, and I was engaged throughout this episode as I wondered how they would get out of this mess. In the third episode, Todd finally gets to shine, which is great since most of the time he fulfills a supportive role. This is easily one of the most light-hearted and funniest episodes of the show, as Todd can always deliver some hilarious lines that are sure to make you laugh. In Ruthie, Princess Carolyn's granddaughter tells the tale of how Princess Carolyn had an awful day in which she had to deal with setback after setback. While the B-plot with BoJack and Diane trying to track down Hollyhock's birth certificate is forgettable, it isn't able to bring down the overall episode. The twist at the end is both amazing and heartbreaking, as it turns out that Princess Carolyn made up her granddaughter Ruthie in order to make her feel better. So this is definitely not an uplifting episode, but is still one of the best and most memorable of the show. While the third episode of season 4 was filled with hilarious moments, the first episode is even funnier, at least in my opinion. In this episode, Mr. Peanutbutter runs for governor, and while at first the chances seem slim, thanks to some lobbying, Mr. Peanutbutter is able to challenge Woodchuck in a skiing match for the governor's seat of California. Even though I've seen this episode countless times, it still remains as funny as the first time I saw it, which is why I had to put it at the number 3 spot. Time's Arrow does the impossible and makes you sympathize with Beatrice. While I still can't forgive her for how she treated BoJack, at least I know how she ended up so bitter and cold. This episode revolves entirely around her, and it's tragic to see all the things she had to deal with, from her selfish and emotionless father to the unfaithful Butterscotch. This makes for a very engaging and depressing episode that ends with a sweet moment, as instead of telling his mother he hates her, BoJack decides to narrate a pleasant scenario taking place in Michigan at the lake house. The Old Sugarman Place is the best episode of the season. In this episode, we get to see what BoJack has been up to since the ending of season 3. When he decides to go to his grandparents' lake house in Michigan, we get to see flashbacks of Beatrice's past, and the stories of the present and past blend nicely together, making for one of the most unique and memorable episodes of the show. So that was my ranking of the episodes of the 4th season of BoJack Horseman. Let me know if you agree with my ranking, and if not, how would you rank these episodes? Thank you for watching, bye bye.